Good evening, everyone, and welcome to just another G.I. Joe podcast. This is Mike, your host, and I'm joined here with a few people with me tonight. Let's start with Fred, as usual. Tell people where they can find you, buddy.
Hey, guys, it's me, Fred from Joe Battle Lines. You can find me on joebattlelines.com, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Google Plus as Joe Battle Lines.
And my good friend Rick, who's usually with me on Cybercast and Galactic Gumbo, is going to chime in tonight. Go ahead and tell me where they can find you, Rick.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter as Shattered Glass Jazz.
All right, and also we have a special guest. He does a lot of cosplay with JoeCon and other conventions. His name is Skinny. Skinny, tell people about yourself real quick, man.
I'm just a huge G.I. Joe fan. I've been into G.I. Joe since 1982. You can find me on Twitter as @SkinnyJoeFan, Instagram is @SkinnyJoeFan, and on practically any G.I. Joe forum is Skinny.
Okay. And as usual, y'all can find me on Twitter as BotconFan1978. The reason we have a cosplay guest with us tonight is that we're actually going to discuss the newly rules that just popped up this past week about the pretty much limiting what you can and cannot have as far as cosplay. That is a subject we will get into here in just a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of going over stuff that JoeCon has put out for us this past week. So we're going to go to screen share, and we know how challenging I am at that. Yeah, let's see if we get it right on the first try.
You know, the Tiger Force Ranger would have had this the first time.
Damn it, Fred, don't say that. All right, okay. Dang it. Did I get it? I got it. Okay. Okay, we're going to get into this one. We're going to start with the May updates from the club. Hold on a second. I know where I messed up at. Hold on. I hate when I try to do this. All right, hold on, guys. See? What are you guys seeing?
Now we got the infinite scope. Now we're back. Dial tone and possibly, is that Breaker?
Hawk version 1.
Oh, nice.
Okay, we'll come back to this in a minute. Okay, guys, I had to make sure I was doing the right thing. Okay, this is from the club. This is their May updates. Convention notes cosplay weapon policy. This year, there will be the following Disney prop weapons policy. No weapons of any kind or objects that appear to be weapons, toy guns, toy blasters, squirt guns, etc. This would include items with blades or look like grenades. So if your child wants to go as Snake Eyes, looks like you really can't do that. I would think that they're going to have to lighten up on some of that. I just don't know. We're going to get into that. Hold on. Also, if you weren't, if you didn't know that they're going to do the G.I. Joe Don't Know trivia contest again this year, they have to have X amount of teams. I honestly don't think they have any teams yet. I know people were starting to talk about it. They want to get teams together. If they don't get, I think it was 6 or 5 teams, that they're just going to cancel that event. They won't have that. Last day to register is May 31st, which is less than a month away now. Registration confirmations and sign-up times, all the good stuff that we get, is going to be around the 1st of June. I would think the first week in June, you'll start getting your letters telling you that you need to show up this time to get your package pickup, or if you're golden ticket, you already know you're going Wednesday night to get it. Let's see here. Additional registration needs to be completed May 31st. Okay. We have renegotiated the parking at the hotel. This is extremely different from when I went to BotCon 2010. You can park at the Dolphin for $20 per night, or you can park at the Swan 100 yards away for $10 a night, which if you've never been there, they are literally, on top of each other. So any way you look at it, you're going to walk. You're at Disney, for God's sakes. You're going to walk. You're going to burn some cardio fat while you're there. So you might as well get used to walking and save you $10. Or what was it for the day, folks? So if you're not staying at the hotel and you're coming in from some other hotel down the road, you can park at the Disney Springs and ride the Disney shuttle over, and I believe that is free. let me see, wait, folks, you can park. Okay, there's a fee to park at Disney Springs and ride the Disney shuttle over. There's a lot of shows. I was at Disney last year. If y'all didn't see the live videos I did over there, there is a lot of shuttle services around that. Man, it's ridiculous. Apparently, if you're parking at Disney Springs, if your car's not removed by 3 a.m., guess what? They're going to remove it for you. And then you're really going to be out money that you can spend at the con. There are no more golden ticket American Heroes left. There are some general golden ticket packages left. There are also, surprisingly, some Wednesday customizing class left. I'm really surprised on that. And according to this, at the time this went up on the 1st, there was 13 loose Battle Force 3 3/4 non-attending sets available. So if you want to get non-attending sets, there you go. We'll go to the front, and for you all who did not see, they have announced the customizing class figure, which was going to be, what do they call it? Red Shadows Officer. So this is what we're going to get in the customizing class. So if you want to get the customizing class, there are a few seats left in the Wednesday if you're going to be in before, Wednesday. What do you think of that, Fred? You think it looks pretty good? I mean, this is our buddy did this one here. I like the face on it, really good.
I think it's pretty solid, quite honestly. I'm a sucker for zombies.
Yep.
So anything with zombies is all good for me. And I think as usual, John's done really solid work. So
right, Rick, you've done customizing with BotCon. We did it together.
Yeah.
And I know you did not sign up for the Joe one, but as far as from a customizing here, what do you think of that figure?
This made me wish I had signed up, but I promised my wife we would do some Disney stuff that day that wasn't like Army Man centric.
Hey, if I get there early enough, I'll dress up as Goofy and run around the classroom, and you can go do the customizing class, and she'll think she's at the parks. I mean,
yeah,
I'm sure she'll love it.
This looks so solid. Like when I saw it, I'm like, ugh. I'm like,
yeah.
who can make this in the class and then bring it out to me, and I'll just give them some cash.
Yeah, one thing
I'll
about
totally buy this.
One thing about this here, the good thing with the customizing class, and they do follow the same rules as what the BotCon did, that they hold certain items back, certain extras. So you have to complete the figure. You have to put the arms on it. You have to put the legs on it. You have to attempt to paint some of it. I know when I did my customizing class last year, I did it to a certain degree that what I knew I was happy doing, and I was asked to do some more paint on a certain part, and I had no problem doing it because I really wanted the Bullet Man helmet, which was actually chrome instead of the gray one that we got, which I really like chrome better. But Skinny, have you done customizing classes before, JoeCon?
I actually did the Bullet Man last year for the first time.
Did you? Okay.
He kind of wound up a little bit steampunkish, but yeah.
Oh, did you? Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. This here is a pretty good here. He has said, I don't know if it's listed here or not. Let's see. Okay, he says here a suggested parts to build the figure is forthcoming. But I think, Fred, if you remember correctly, in one of our episodes, he did tell us, wasn't it Resolute Destro legs?
Oh.
It was Destro legs.
I think you're right. I'd have to go back and look. It was the episode. I think it was just actually the Kickstarter. No, it was two times ago for John that he actually told us. Yeah, I want to say it is Resolute Destro.
I know for sure those legs.
No, it's right. It's isn't it, or is it the Rise of Cobra, the more military-looking Destro?
I think it was supposed to be the one that had the baggy pants. Which one?
Well, because that jacket's Resolute, so. That could be the Resolute. I'll have to check with John, but either way, have some Destro legs ready, kids.
Yeah, no doubt. Destro legs for sure. Arms, I have no clue what he said on arms. But granted, they're going to tell us here soon what parts you're going to need. So if you're in the customizing class, definitely stay tuned to find out what you need. I know when I did the class last year, I didn't take no legs. I ended up using some, I think it was, one of the movie Storm Shadows legs. So my Bullet Man has some ninja feet on him.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's kind of cool. No shoes, Bullet Man.
No shoes, but he's the Fred Flintstone of Bullet Man. Yeah, I enjoyed the customizing class. I did it for one time. That's probably the only time I do it. BotCon was a totally different thing for me. I enjoyed doing it both times. I wanted to at least do Joe Con's customizing class one time, and I did it. Enjoyed it. If you've never done it, Rick, you need to sign up for it. Go in there and have a good time. You'll all really enjoy it. Now that we have talked what the club said about cosplay, I went ahead and looked up the parts and regulations for Disney, and these are prohibited items. And if we go down, let's see,
Letter
G, weapons of any kind, objects that appear to be weapons or toy guns, including toy blasters, squirt guns, etc. Deja vu. I think we read that on the last page. So, I mean, if you're going to go to the parks, this is what, you're kind of looking into. Now, granted, we have to think about this, that the parks and the resorts are two totally different companies.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I believe, that there might be, and I'm not trying to go on a rant with, about this, not trying to make the club or Brian look bad by any means. I know in the long run, he is trying to protect himself from any issues or anything for Hazard to have issues with. But you would think when we get to the cosplay contest on Saturday night, that you're in the hotel or you're in the convention room. I'm sure it's going to be where BotCon was and where 2011 JoeCon stuff was at, in the same area. And it makes you wonder, you're there by yourself. You're surrounded by other nerds. So you're not where you're going to be seeing, Joe Blow from Alaska who doesn't know who the hell you are or what you're doing, running around with a plastic sword and a mask on, or why you look like Destro.
Well, and I think especially since you're in what is essentially a confined environment, you're at the hotel, you're at a special function. I would think that Disney would be willing to waive it for that area only. But again, that's more work on Disney's part, and Disney's not going to do anything more than they have to. Right. And also, I'm curious, and I honestly don't know the answer to this. When Star Wars when the Star Wars events have happened, the big Star Wars weekends, and people are running around the Disney parks in costume, do they have the same prohibition on fake weapons at that point? Because, it's kind of weird to see a stormtrooper running around with jazz hands because he doesn't have a blaster in them, or a Jedi with no lightsaber. Now, granted, the hilt you might be able to get away with because it's a tube hanging off your belt, but yeah, for a military themed toy line to have and a military themed toy line that has a convention that has had a growing cosplay segment the last few years, to be at a venue where you cannot have your some of the signature elements of some of these characters' costumes, that I don't know if that's just the club hadn't thought this through, because, let's be honest, the club and sometimes forward planning are not really the same thing.
Right.
Or if this kind
over the past couple of years. Sorry, Fred. Over the past couple of years, it has kind of headed towards that direction. 2 years ago was the first year we had peace bonding, which is where you have to have a little tag on your trigger. Last year was no weapons because of the incident in Orlando. The Denver authorities basically said, well, not Denver, Colorado authorities basically said, because of that event, no weapons. So last year was the first year that no weapons were allowed at the con. And that also included the costume contest after the dinner.
Wow.
Now, let me ask you this. Because I do a convention, and I do not, by any means whatsoever, maybe it's bad on my part for not looking into it more, but I have guys who deal with the cosplay, in that we did a video not too long ago for my page where we talked about cosplay and what you're allowed to or not allowed to have. And, we said certain items, we always say, if you're going to bring a prop gun in, make sure there's orange tape on it, and if, and one of the guys who does my my cosplay that actually dresses up as Batman the Dark Knight. He is actually a detective in our town. You know, so I mean, if he feels like a gun looks real, he's going to approach him, of course. You know, I give him full authority, but I mean, you know, I mean, I don't, you know, the only thing I stress is, you know, we all know that cosplay is kind of like a nerd's drool for women. Some of them are. I mean, in some aspects it is. I mean, you got to think, you know, a woman show that looks really hot and she's barely got anything on. Me personally, of course, I'm going to drool. But I mean, for my show in particular, I don't want it aimed towards that because we have a lot of children that come to my event. You know, we don't want children seeing, you know, half naked women with barely anything covering themselves up. So,
Well, as cosplay has come more popular over the years, you have seen more restrictions as far as what type of clothing you can wear at a con, what kind of props you can bring to a con. And it also depends on the venue. Certain venues, you know, will say yes, and certain venues will say no, you can't have that. So, like we have a con here called Sodak Con, and basically there is no airsoft weapons or anything like that because the Civic Center will not let you have that. Now, if you want to build a weapon out of foam, you know, you're fine, but you can't have airsoft or anything that can actually fire a projectile like Nerf, etc.
So you can have things that look that fit the physical, the visual description or the visual likeness of a weapon, as long as they're non-firing.
At our local con, yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'm going to go to this next one. We're going to look at some. Now, I want you to explain to us, Skinny, the you know, every picture we look through here, so people know. You know, this is what you do. You like to cosplay. I mean,
right.
Now, this is last year. I know that venue. That's where we were at in Colorado.
Yep. It sure is.
And now that was a Dial Tone, and you said that was a General Hawk version 1?
Colonel Hawk version 1.
Colonel Hawk. Okay.
Nice.
Okay, so there's that one.
And I did, before I even, you know, went through that, I checked with the JoeCon staff to see, because you can see there that I've got my knife and my grenade, and they said, yes, that was fine. But it does pay to make sure and check before you actually do anything like that.
Was the knife real or was it plastic?
It's plastic.
Plastic. Okay. See, I don't see see again, you know, I'm different on stuff like that, I guess. So let's go to the next one here. Go ahead, Rick. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, like, you know, back to Fred was talking about Celebration. I watched a lot of that coverage that weekend of the Star Wars Celebration stuff. And, man, there were lightsabers everywhere. And I think it's from an outsider's perspective that's not dipping into the details. You know, Star Wars, you're dealing with this huge fantasy element. And people that don't know G.I. Joe don't get the fantasy element. They get that the cosplaying is a little bit of fantasy, but when I say fantasy, I mean like that sci-fi bend that G.I. Joe has, that over the top. To some people, when you say G.I. Joe, they think Army Man. And that's just that's as deep as they go. That's just as deep as they go.
Even with Star Wars, this Thursday was May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. In Wisconsin, there was an incident where a high schooler went against the high school's policy of no costumes, and a bystander saw them entering the back door of the school.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Stormtrooper uniform on and just a mask, and called the cops.
Yep.
And it caused an evacuation of the school.
Didn't he get arrested? I can't remember.
They detained him, and then it said it was, you know, a mistake, and, you know, not to detain him, but it, you know, it was a mistake on the kid's part, and, you know, basically everything became a wash. But it made, you know, the news. So
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's a shame.
It's interesting to me that this topic is interesting because it also, whether you're talking about this or the animation or the comic or just the brand and how to reboot the brand, this theme keeps coming up. In today's world, G.I. Joe it's a military. It's always been a kind of a military type brand. And how do you work with that in any, whether it's cosplay or animation, whatever it is? How do you work within that? Because these are great topics because it touches on the problems and the changes that have kind of come up for people that are in the hobby, whether you're a cosplayer or action figure collector or you're just into the cartoons.
Yeah,
it can't be avoided.
We seem to have a much lower tolerance these days, and maybe it's just the world we live in. I mean, obviously, when I'm in my early 40s, and I don't remember growing up hearing about mass shootings in American, nightclubs and malls and all that. And we played military as a kid, and there was nothing wrong with we had toy guns, and I don't even think we had the orange caps on them at that point. We had cap guns and everything else, and I think maybe there was the red plug in the barrel, just to show that it wasn't solid. But G.I. Joe in general, and I do want to get us back to the cosplay side of things, but G.I. Joe, this is an area where G.I. Joe is struggling, and because you're absolutely right. G.I. Joe is its origins in the 60s were military. It deviated to near military adventure with Adventure Team, but then in the 80s it went whole hog Reagan era military again. It was that, and Sigma 6, Sergeant Savage. I mean, there's not one subsequent incarnation of Joe that's been, G.I. Joe is a code name for America's daring, highly trained trash collection service. Its purpose, it's always been tied to the military. And and it's a shame because, again, I'm not a cosplayer. It's kind of like I'm not a customizer. These are areas of the fandom I don't get into. But the people that do are so amazingly detailed in the work they do and the effort they put into their costumes. And I almost feel like, unfortunately, with policies like this, it's kind of nerfing cosplayers from some of the props that they would carry with them in this particular genre. Again, a Snake Eyes costume where you can't have the swords, even if it was just a dummy handle on a sheath, or I'm seeing the picture of the Rise of Cobra general that I'm assuming that's General Hawk. I'm assuming.
Yes, but if I had my glasses on, I was Breaker. But yes,
and I love that. And it's like Hawk, you picture with the 45 in the holster, and even if it was non-removable, like you were saying with the foam weapons earlier, I just feel like it's kind of like taking these awesome cosplayers and then being like, well, you can only do 2/3 of what you want to do.
Yeah, that was back in 2009. So
yeah,
in Kansas City.
Oh, that was the last really big JoeCon that I remember, because it was the movie year, and it was that convention was hopping.
And that was actually the first time that JoeCon, at least to my recollection, was really starting to begin the cosplay aspect too. You saw a lot more people dressed up in costume at that con.
Yeah, because I was going to say before that, it was just at the dinner on Saturday, there would be a small costume contest. Usually there would be the moment of, oh, what the hell is Kavanaugh doing? As James Kavanaugh was in one year he was in my room dyeing his hair to be Crystal Ball. And I think you're right. I think 2009, I saw a ton more. I hadn't been in a couple of years, and I saw a ton more people in costume during the day and at the night. It was awesome. It was like I actually had this moment of, I didn't really like Rise of Cobra, but maybe this is turning our fandom back up a little bit. Like, hell yeah.
I actually wore that uniform, the Hawk Rise of Cobra uniform. I was invited by the local theater to basically stand outside their doors for 6 hours, and then I got to see the final showing.
Oh, wow.
They had the National Guard set up there. I had a Cobra symbol on the hood of my Mustang. I had a Mustang back then. And they allowed me to park my Mustang up there by the Humvees, and it was just great.
Oh, dude.
That's cool.
Now, I got a brain fart. Tell us about this one. This is Steeler. What was this one taken?
Yeah. That was, I basically set up a photo shoot out in the boondocks out here. And I'm good friends with a local ad agency photographer. And he photoshopped the MOBAD in behind me, and that was a fun night.
Very cool.
Mike,
Good
put that picture back. That is a
Yeah, but that does look great.
Which one, the Steeler?
hell yeah.
It's still there, right?
Yeah, that visor alone. When I was a kid and I got Steeler, his visor was like fascinating to me, and I'm just glad it's like that is so spot on.
LED lights in it, so it does light up.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Seriously,
That's awesome.
you're killing me, man. That's amazing.
Now you did this last year. This is the one you entered in the contest.
Yes, that was me last year.
That's right.
Oh my freaking
awesome.
God, that is amazing.
Now there were two Raptors, but I specifically remember him. I remember you specifically when when I remember the contest. But yeah, I remember this one here.
I commissioned a gal in California to make that hood, and she did an excellent job.
And you said how big was the wingspan of that thing?
Well, those are actually belly dancing wings, and that's my full wingspan is probably about 8 feet, I suppose, with the cape.
Wow.
I don't have words. That's you've blown my freaking mind with this. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And then you're
Are
just
you going to be there this year? Are you going to be at the con this year?
Trying to get there right now. It's kind of iffy. So,
Raptor technically doesn't have any weapons on him, so a Raptor costume again.
And that's the thing. When they institute these policies, you just kind of got to think outside the box.
Yeah.
There are several G.I. Joe characters that maybe they have a hip holster, but you know what that becomes? That becomes a cell phone holster.
Yeah.
My
buddy Mike
to go with the policies.
My buddy Mike at Springfield went as Scoop, and that was a big thing for him. Was the bulk of, if you think of Scoop, the bulk of Scoop's costume is non-weaponized.
Correct.
And so he just had the handy cam, and he had, I think his cell phone was strapped on his forearm as like the screen. So you're right. There are ways to get around it. Kind of like, Croc Master. Technically, if you take out the whip, you could have a small, it would probably be stuffed, but you could have a small crocodile with you. And I can't see Disney going, "Excuse me, sir, that crocodile could be a weapon. You need to put the crocodile down."
Well, now, if we recall last year, there was an incident with a crocodile on the property. Matter of fact, at the property. So I can technically see them.
But if you go back one picture there, you'll see the guy that actually had the crocodile.
Yeah, I remember seeing it.
Guy.
Now, what is this?
That would be a Fatal Fluffy.
Oh my God. You're killing me. I'm sorry. Dude.
Which is relevant again because it's in the comic. It's in the recent comic.
Freaking awesome.
Okay, let's see.
Now, when someone blew a whistle, did you shrink down to the little
No, I did actually have with me a smaller version. I had it stuffed. So, yes. I had the little Fatal Fluffies with me, and then I also had, being dressed as the full-size Fatal Fluffy.
Dude, I owe you a beer for this.
That was this year, and that was my Walking Dead.
Well, now that bat, I'm assuming was plastic. That's all plastic, right?
It is a wiffle bat with actually the barbed wire is not barbed wire. I don't know if you go to Hobby Lobby or not, but you have those fake flowers.
Yeah.
Those are fake flower vines, and I just took all the flowers off and wrapped it around the bat, and I spray painted it first and then wrapped it around the bat.
Huh. That is very interesting.
Cool.
And then this here.
That was a photo shoot I did a few years ago. A local photographer was doing a Guadalcanal photo shoot, and that might have been the Back to Baton Death March. I can't remember exactly which one that is, but anyway, that's authentic uniform, authentic 45. We do have an open carry law here in the States, so no problems there. But yeah, that was a fun shoot.
Now I like this one here.
That was Rogue One.
Rogue One. Okay.
Went to the theater dressed as an Imperial officer.
That's cool.
Right.
Okay, that's officially cool.
Okay, that one picture's out there. But there was a picture you did send me, or I did see, there was a guy that had he did have like an inflatable crocodile, and for people who don't know, there was an incident.
JoJo archive, then you can see that picture. You can see tons of pictures of cosplay on the JoJo archive.
Yeah, there was an incident at the parks where there was a something had happened, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't allow inflatable crocodiles. Okay, all right. For other people who didn't know, the Club magazine is out. Check your mailboxes. It's a special issue, no comic. It's Battle Force 2000 and the history behind Super Joe, which Fred, you'll like that.
Woohoo!
And the theme of the box set is called Force of Battle. I would show you the pictures, but I was already asked to take those down. I did get a friend of mine, won't say no one's name, Rick, but someone had sent me a picture. I posted it on a few sites, and then I was talking to Brian about some stuff, and he had asked me to take it down, so I took it down to keep the nostalgic version of it a surprise. But the one thing you didn't send me, Rick, was or whoever that was the box art for the 12-inch set, which is actually really cool. And the story that they're putting on that's going to, just the comic alone, that's worth the read, man, because it sounds like it's going to be a really good read. It's kind of like a past history and a new storyline to the old history. So it's going to be really cool. And there's a real good, very 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's like 5 or 6 pages. Yeah, 5 pages of nothing but Super Joe stuff. So I know Fred will enjoy that.
Hey, I like my obscure eras of G.I. Joe. What can I say?
So Skinny, since we're on the subject of the cosplay, this is really what we're trying to focus more on. As a cosplayer and knowing that you are going into a cosplay contest, do you feel like it can be judged correctly now, or do you feel like that Brian or whoever might just pick their top few and then let the crowd decide? I mean, that's usually what we've done in the past, isn't it?
Usually, you get up on stage and Brian puts his hand behind your head, and it goes by audience applause. So, an alternative to that would be maybe getting a guest judge, which would be kind of cool, if you could bring a guest judge. But for the most part, it's for fun, basically, the prizes that you get are great. You can use them on show dollars on the show floor the next day. But for the most part, most cosplayers, the prizes, as far as value-wise versus the parts of your costume, it's done for fun. So,
do the cosplayers? I know here some of the cosplayers that show from my show, they're usually, they take really good pride in it. They build a lot of stuff.
Oh, sure.
Do you feel that any cosplayer up until this past week is kind of at a letdown because maybe they had a character in mind they've been working on it this whole time, and knowing that it requires grenades or guns or mask or helmet, knowing now that they can't do that, is that kind of like, they're probably, definitely cussing underneath their lips about it? I mean,
it's possible. But anybody who cosplays at JoeCon between the last year and the year before, you kind of see the writing on the wall as far as where things were going. That's one of the reasons I chose Raptor last year for JoeCon, is I did not want to get into, any issues. And, when we arrived there, we found out, basically keep your weapons in the car or the hotel room. And so, I was kind of glad that I had actually brought Raptor.
What would you have brought instead of Raptor?
I was I wouldn't have minded to bring in this, the XMLR. But, for one thing, it doesn't have an orange tip because it is sold by Pit Viper. But you can fix that with orange tape or spray painted orange, whichever.
Right.
But it would have been nice to have done a character with that, because it's always kind of cool to get those kind of cool poses. But you also have to abide by the rules, and there's also if you put a lot of work into a prop, when you put that work into the prop, you have to remember that some cons may not allow that prop. So it's just kind of part of the game.
So for anyone who's actually watching the show and is interested in cosplaying, should they possibly, email the club and find out for sure before they put all their hard work into it for nothing?
I mean, the rules at Disney are pretty clear. They say no weapons, and I think that means anything from a throwing star to, a missile launcher. So they just don't want, it's not part of the Disney image. So they just don't want anything like that on the property.
And that is a really good point, is that Disney has cultivated this incredibly safe, family-friendly image for decades. And I think, up until Disney purchased Marvel and Star Wars, most Disney things really didn't have weapons associated with it. And so, this is, in some ways, this is new ground for them. Tron, you had an Aerobee, you had the discs, that was it. And so, yeah, I think G.I. Joe is it's a weird fit for Disney property, but I think Skinny's right. It seems like, especially for cosplayers, you kind of have to play by the rules of the venue. And my question to Skinny is, as someone who has obviously done this, for years, and this is a hobby, and you've done this at more than just JoeCon, are comic conventions more open on their restrictions, or in the light of some of the events that have happened, in unregrettable situations the past couple of years, are even they cracking down as well?
It depends on the convention. I went to Wizard World Minneapolis, and I had Star Wars blasters, that I had brought with me. They didn't have any problem with that. They just peace bonded them and let me in,
Okay.
It all, like I said, it all depends on the venue. Some will have policemen on duty there, and like the person that checked me in at Wizard World was actual policeman. Okay. So they inspect your weapons, they check you in. If you bring the wrong type of weapon, they will, confiscate it and give it back to you after you leave the showroom floor.
Well, and especially Star Wars, Han's blaster, the Imperial Stormtrooper, those are based on real weapons when Correct. They crafted the original prop. So yeah, I mean, they're not commonplace weapons, but it does walk that line. So.
And part of the thing with Disney, as far as Star Wars goes, I was looking at the rules a little bit. You can have a lightsaber, but it has to be a store-bought plastic lightsaber. You can't have, like a homemade lightsaber. Jedi robes are not allowed because you could possibly be concealing something, so they don't want anything like a Jedi robe. Just the things that they have to be protective of.
Sure.
That's probably why they had it. Didn't they have it down in Orange County, the celebration?
It was in Orlando.
It was Orlando?
Yeah.
But it wasn't on parks.
It wasn't on
Disney property.
It was at the convention center.
Yeah.
Right. Here's my question. Me and Rick actually talked about this few episodes of Galactic Gumbo. Me as a promoter, I full on accept cosplayers, any form, shape, size, anything whatsoever. I draw the limit on clothing options. I want them to show up with clothing on completely. But there was a con, and I don't know if you remember, Rick, which state it was in. I want to say it was Florida, and they went on their site and they said that if you show up in cosplay, you will be turned away from our event. They told people up front, you show up in cosplay, no, you can't come in. You have to leave.
I did see that, and my personal opinion on that was not a con. That was more of like a dealer showroom sale kind of event. And they probably, I hate to say it, misrepresented themselves as a con when it was more like a comic book flea market almost.
All right. Now, when I say that, when I started out, I started out 9 years ago, and I was in the basement of a bowling alley, and all I really had was like 2 or 3 artists that were local, and a bunch of other guys who had comics, toys. Actually 1 or 2 toy dealers all I had, and a bunch of guys had comics. A few women making some, jewelry with superhero stuff tied into it. And here I am 9 years later, and I got I know for a fact I have over 60 dealers, including my artists and everything. I have but back then we didn't have cosplay. You might have got the occasional 1 or 2 cosplayers to show up, and I called myself a con. I called it Little Rock Comic Con, but I never by any means said, hey, no, you're not allowed in here because you're dressed up. But I mean, over the years, I have done stuff for the cosplay community where I'm like, show up in cosplay, we'll knock off a couple of dollars, to where now we're having, some of the biggest cosplay contests I've ever been a part of in my life. So I mean, and I consider myself a con because I mean, now granted, 9 years ago, 150 people now have over 3,000 showing up. So I mean, it's a totally different genre than it was 9 years ago. But I mean, when that guy posted that, I mean, Rick will tell you when we had that discussion on Galactic Gumbo, I lost my crap. I was so mad. I even went to my own page with the same picture they used, and I scribbled on it on one of those photo app things, telling people you are more welcome to cosplay at my event, Little Rock Comic Con. And I even went on there and I posted it on their page, and people were like, man, you're a savage, blah blah blah. I was getting people, backing me up on it, because you can't say the word con and not consider the umbrella of everything under a con. You can't say con and say everything but you. I mean, it's kind of like when you say the words you people, you're discriminating against somebody, So, I mean, and that's basically what they're doing. And I felt that way. I mean, I'm going to go on a rant here in a second, but Rick knows how I felt that day.
Yeah.
I was so mad.
It's such a cool aspect of, like, with the cosplay for me, and I've never done the JoeCon. I've done BotCon many times. The cosplay at BotCon is so different than, dressing up as a robot is a little bit different than some of the G.I. Joe folks, or whether you're Marvel or DC characters or anime, things like that. I'm looking forward to JoeCon because I've seen some of the cosplay at JoeCon, and it's phenomenal. And for me, the cosplay adds this, most of the cons you're going there because you're celebrating fiction of some kind, whether it's books or movies or whatever it is. And the cosplay blurs that line between the fiction and real life. And for me, that's huge. I love it. Absolutely love it. I will get my picture taken. I'll take pictures. And I love the stuff.
Matter of fact, I know for a fact when we were at BotCon, your wife's right up there in the front getting pictures.
Oh yeah, we like taking pictures and stuff like that. It's almost like a gallery on display too, because it's everybody's work on display. And most folks that are doing it, they love doing it, and not just the craft, but usually the brand that they're representing as well. And there's a lot of passion in that. And it's like, I always look at it like an art gallery on legs, and it's really it's a really fun thing. So I can't imagine in this day and age going to like a real con, and not seeing cosplay.
Well, I was at Long Beach Comic Con, and I was dressed as Raptor, and it was kind of interesting because a lot of people came up to me and said, oh, "Bird person," and I'm like, so you just smile and you say, "Yeah, sure, you can have a picture,"
Right.
It's just kind of, how it is.
That's awesome. Did anybody say Condor Man?
No, not obscure, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're playing with my emotions here by calling it Condor Man. I'm just saying.
Right.
It's obscure, damn it. I probably like it.
Yeah.
Fred, do you remember in JoeCon 15, I think it was actually the young lady who was going to be with Snipe, but couldn't make it. I believe they were all dressed up in dresses, and they were passing out cupcakes.
Yes. it was Joe Colton was one of them, and Mary Mercenary was the other. Sarah, whose husband runs Roma Collectibles. Aaron, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the store for a moment. But yeah, those ladies had multiple costumes all weekend long, and I thought that was brilliant. And you know, again, it's cosplay has just really evolved so much, and it's interesting that because I bring up Mary Mercenary because she's one of the cosplayers that'll actually do female versions of male characters.
Okay.
And the very first time that I met her was at one of the Coil Cons over at the old location of Kokomo Toys before they moved downtown, and she was female Chuckles. And it was completely badass because I'm sitting there and, like, of course, when I go to these things, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt because I'm a nerd and it's hot out. And here I look over, there she is, and she's in a Hawaiian shirt, and I'm like, then she puts on the holster, and I'm like, oh shit, it's Chuckles. Like, that's and you know, again, that's to me is fun because it's like cosplayers basically allow you know, if you're not a cosplayer, it allows you to see some of your favorite characters walking around in the real world looking as faithfully as they can be to the source material, unlike a lot of movie adaptations or those god-awful foam costumes that Marvel used to use for public appearances in the 80s. You know, the cosplayers are man, they're just killing it by spending hours and hours making things like Raptor look awesome in the real world. And
I actually have a friend that I met at Long Beach Comic Con, and he does they call it gender bending. He does a gender bend of the Baroness, and he calls himself the Baron.
Ooh,
the Baron.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
And then I'm picturing he needs to partner up with someone to do a female Destro.
Yeah.
Right.
And completely flip it on its ear, and
That'd
that could
be awesome.
be awesome.
Yeah.
There was a guy a while back who did that with custom figures, and he reversed the genders of the original 13. God, I have that photo saved somewhere. And I remember, like, to me, it was amazing because it was a fresh take on these characters that we've seen over and over and over. And it was like, okay, you know what? I'm digging it. So
that was probably Garrett Blair. I'm not positive on that though.
I think you're right, actually.
And then also for people who we did post before, we found out earlier today that Joe Colton Cosplay was going to be on, but I think something came up. She ended up being working somewhere else, so maybe we can have her on again
tonight. So she couldn't make it.
Okay, well, too bad about that. Wish we could have had her on. Trying to think of some other stuff we were wanting to talk about. Fred, did you have anything?
There is one thing that I was going to suggest to people who are going to dress up at JoeCon, and Disney characters. Part of the rules at Disney is that you cannot do an elaborate Disney costume that looks like the park employees. You know, can't have it too realistic. So a lot of people do what's called Disney bound. And it's basically casual cosplay where you dress similar to the character, but you don't go all out. So, like, for, like, say, Han Solo, you wear a black vest and a white shirt and blue jeans. It's not as an elaborate cosplay, but at the same time, you know, you still get to dress up.
Yeah. So I got a question for Skinny as our resident cosplay person tonight. What advice do you have? Like, let's say there's somebody out there who's watching this, who's going to JoeCon or just to a comic convention, and you know they've never cosplayed before, so they kind of have ideas in their mind. What's some advice that you would give to someone who's starting out in this? Like, for example, Mike, who's going to do his Tiger Force Power Ranger costume.
Damn right.
Basically, work within your skill set. You know, you can, if you know how to do something, you can always experiment, but you should start out small with your skill set. Like, if you've never built a gun out of foam before, you may want to give that, you know, a little bit bigger look than just saying, "Oh, I'm going to build a gun out of foam." The other thing is pick a character you love. If you just pick a character just because you think that it'd be easy to do, then you're not going to have the same passion as you would with a character that you really love and you want to become, quote unquote, while you're at the con. And that would be my biggest advice, is to do somebody that you love.
Okay. So, see, Mike, there are Raptor fans out there. Not just me. There's two of us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. As soon as that figure ships, the new one, I'm looking forward to it.
That was something else I meant to mention, was that if you all were, the labels have been made. I've got my label notice. Of course, it was made back on the 2nd and still sitting at the house of Brian Savage. So usually it takes about a week, I've noticed here lately. Once they print a label, it's about a week before they ship out. So probably maybe Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, coming up week, they'll ship out and we'll have them by next weekend. So, I'm thinking it's probably going to be Macho Nacho and Raptor.
See, I'm thinking Raptors for the last shipment.
You think so?
I think Raptor was one that enough people are excited about. I think it's going to be the knockoff Gung Ho. And I can only call him that because they really put like very little change aside from the tampo and the colors. They didn't even change the skin tone, which they did when they did the O-ring version, but they didn't this time, but whatever. Mm-hmm. And trying to think of who else is left. Steel Raven, to me, I would hold the last shipment, and it would be Steel Raven and Raptor and G.I. Jane, who it's an open secret. The club screwed up and swapped a figure stand, and we're getting Jane.
You know
what? Hell yeah.
Let's back up on that real quick. We do know that the club pushed back shipment number 2 for 2 months because of, we were told, issues or whatever the case may be. And then someone on Facebook, and the same person on Facebook, posted on his Tanks forum that, oh, hey, I opened up my scoop and this is the stand that was in there. So I guess this is our 13th figure, which said G.I. Jane, which people who don't know or think, they really think we're going to get the version that was in Marvel's G.I. Joe number 80 or 86. 86.
I honestly think we're going to get something closer to, was it Viper Lockdown, which was the 6-pack at Toys R Us a number of years ago, which came with the Interrogator, the Viper officers, the repainted Stalker is Joe Colton, and a repainted Bomb Strike is G.I. Jane. And in some ways, given the lack of new parts that we've seen from the club this year, I'm kind of suspicious that's the route they're going.
Well, I was kind of thinking the 86 comic version, and they would use the RC head because
that doesn't look anything like her.
Well, I'm thinking that because they're Joe Colton that we already got back in 2014 at JoeCon is the same ones in this. So I can see them pairing those two together on an existing figure, which is what the club's known to do for in the past.
But the only reason that the RC head works in that figure, because for those of you who have it or don't have it, I should say, she's got sculpted detail on the front, but the back of the head is like completely smooth. Like the hair is just almost like a Lego helmet. And at first, when I got it, I'm like, damn it, club, you cheaped out on the sculpt. And then I realized it's actually probably supposed to be that way because she was a freaking synthoid. So she was a near replica of a person without being all the way, and so I could forgive them then. If they use RC's head as G.I. Jane, man, I'm going to flip a table because she has never looked like that at all.
And they'll probably use the Diggle Jones body with the lab coat.
Oh, Mike, you're killing me. That coat sucks.
I'm just saying because
I haven't even reviewed that because that figure freaking sucks.
If you look back at the comic, in the comic, she has a white lab coat.
She has a lab coat, but she doesn't have something with a collar up to here. It's like she's going to a Kiss concert.
I'm just throwing it out there. I have no idea. I mean, it could be your version. I'm just going off what I think.
Me.
We all have our opinions on it, and then of course, there's someone out there who actually knows what it actually is. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on it. What else was I going to talk about?
Tiger Force.
No, not this week.
That's all Mike's ever going to talk about. Tonight we've got Tiger Force Optimus Prime. Mike's Worlds Collide.
Oh, wow, that'd be awesome. Tiger Force Optimus Prime.
Oh shit, I was just kidding.
Man, that's a good idea. That's really good one. I like that. Now, but we do know with it, we're mid-May almost, and the speculation is going to start real soon on what we're going to get. So hopefully, maybe there'll be some leaked information. Somewhere, somehow, something will be leaked, and we won't talk about it because I don't want to be on Brian's bad side. I've been there before, and it's not very pretty sometimes. But Fred, what else do we need to talk about?
Yeah. All right, we've already talked. We've touched a little on FSS. Cough. They screwed up Scoop's uniform colors. Cough. Cough.
Well, we didn't really talk. We didn't talk about that. I mean, I thought it was orange. I thought it looked right. I mean,
yellow.
Was it
yellow? I reviewed the original Scoop years ago at JBL, and one of the things I always dug about Scoop was his uniform's yellow, and then a little bit later, so was Lightfoot's. And if you put the two together, their uniforms are pretty darn similar. And so we got the shipment delayed. I get it. There was problems, and then we get it, and I open up the box. And Giraffe Boy and Tangerine Dream fell out. And Scoop was like not even freaking close. And, it's weird because the club will almost go to crazy lengths to replicate the vintage colors of something or the vintage look. Sometimes in cases where it's like, the vintage thing kind of sucked and you could update it and not make anybody mad. And for some reason, Scoop just came out completely orange. So, and he's got that helmet that doesn't come off, which is cost cutting. But yeah. I don't know if you saw, Sam Sears had shared because the Sky Patrol convention set, a lot of the design work was done by Troy McKee, who is a Joe fan, and he's in a lot of groups. And Troy had shared some of his concept art that he had sent to the club, which was breaking down the Sky Patrol set and a lot of the characters. And Airborne originally had a removable helmet, and so did Static Line. And the club probably looked at that and said, well, we'd rather replicate the vintage guns of Battle Force 2000, even though you can buy them on eBay for pennies on the dollar. And so they, for some reason, didn't tool removable helmets. But it was kind of a neat glimpse of what could have been.
Right. See, and I'm looking at my club magazine. I've mentioned it before. I've picked up all 6 of the Battle Force 2000 figures, and actually, I bought 5 at Dallas Fan Expo about a month or so ago. And a good friend of mine named Kevin actually gave me a knockout, whichever one he's called.
Knockdown.
Yeah, he actually gave that to me complete. Because my plan Wednesday when we get our box sets is to go straight to my room and do a video review comparing the vintage to the current ones and get that loaded up on YouTube Wednesday night. Then I'm running down to the bar to get drunk. So, and Rick's going with me. So Rick will be down there taking part in all the hi.
This show is so bad for me because, all right, so the last time I was on the show, I think everybody was talking about like the best Joe Con sets and the best, sub figures. And I had said, I'm fairly new to it. I might have like 40 of the sub figures, and at the time I had 2 of the Joe Con sets. And after that, I went out and for a solid 5 weeks, all I did was hunt down the October Guard set and all the souvenirs and stuff. And it took me 5 weeks and a ton. I might as well have done direct deposit to eBay trying to find all those things. And I was on it.
That October Guard set is brutal in the aftermarket. And
Yes.
even with the new Darklon that came out, that Darklon goes for big bucks. The entire October Guard, the Iron Grenadiers you can get for less, but
they're not too
man,
bad.
that October Guard set, I had posted a picture of them on Instagram a while back. It was just a group shot of the October Guard together, and somebody commented, they're like, "Man, that's like a grand worth of figures right there." And I thought, no, it can't be. And then I went on eBay, and I went, "Oh, sweet merciful Zeus!" Like, I couldn't get over. I just couldn't believe, because it's the October Guard. I mean, whether you read the comics or even their appearance in the cartoon, these guys were awesome.
Yeah, that box set, by the way, I have taken down, and I love Transformers. I have taken down a whole 6-foot shelf of Transformers to make room for Joe stuff. Joe stuff. I just bought flight stands for the Night Raven, the Rattler, and 2 Sky Strikers. What used to be just Transformers room has been literally taken over recently by Joe stuff, and it's Mike's influence.
I was so proud of my. So proud of myself.
One of us. See, I got the matching T-shirt now.
Yes.
Go. I already told him I was going to get him a T-shirt for JoeCon.
I went out this week and got all the Battle Force 2000 stuff as well, including the vehicles.
Oh, you poor man!
I just I've been hitting it way too hard.
Right.
Now I'm sitting here feeling like a schmuck because I haven't ordered a convention set yet, and all I want are the Battle Force 2000 figures. And meanwhile, you guys are like diving in and have bought everything.
Hey, I might have you if you need a set, I think I got someone who's looking to unload his Battle Force 2000 set. You want just the Battle Force guys?
Yeah, I don't need 30,000 bats.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely. Matter of fact, I will text him. It's a good friend of mine. I usually room with Jim.
Yes.
Said he got another loose set. So, just so I go ahead and go to this next part we're going to talk about. As most of y'all know, I do talk to Brian, not on a daily basis, but I do email him the week of the show and ask him questions. What he can tell us. I have asked Brian or Lenny to come on. They don't feel like it's fair to come on and not be able to answer everything to a T without not able to answer something. But I do know this for sure is that I did ask him about Hasbro because a lot of people have asked, is Hasbro going to be there? They're going to have a panel. They're going to have something to show us. We go through this, I think, just about every year where we discuss, hey, is Hasbro coming? Yeah. And as Brian put it, we will all find out when the schedule goes up. And the schedule, I'm sure, will go up probably around the same time. We'll all get our letters, be somewhere on the 1st of June. We're looking about 3 weeks by then till JoeCon. So I would think that's when we'll find out. Even if they don't give us a whole lot of nothing, at least showing their presence that they still care about the brand.
I agree.
Should at least be there. I know. I have a brain fart. Whenever I think of him, it's the one guy. He always wears the Hawaiian shirt too.
Oh, Daryl.
Daryl, yeah, Daryl
the priest.
He is so hardcore, G.I. Joe.
Yeah, he is.
From what I understood, from what I heard from inside people sources, was that he single-handedly saved the club to keep JoeCon.
Yeah,
was my understanding. And God bless that man, because if not, G.I. Joe wouldn't have Squadouche at all, because they're not considered. They weren't even considered anything for them for HasCon.
And what's funny is a couple years ago, it would have been 2015 at JoeCon. It was the first year Mark Webber was there.
Yep.
And I was talking to Mark and Daryl, and they were kind of saying that the direction that they had wanted to do at that point, because they knew that Hasbro was starting to look to the future in this, Hasbro cinematic universe and, setting all that up. And that the mass market G.I. Joe was going to be moving in that direction. But Daryl and Mark had both said at that point that the club was almost going to be more for the collectors and was going to be the Real American Hero and the 12-inch stuff. And then what Hasbro was going to produce was going to be, whatever this new shared universe, whatever new form G.I. Joe takes. And I'll be honest, I'm one of the people that does think that it needs to evolve if it's going to continue to reach kids, because, we're all getting older and there's fewer and fewer of us out there now. But I think something must have changed with Hasbro at that point, internally, because the push just hasn't been there. And I know Mark and Daryl, these guys are champions of the brand at Hasbro, and they're doing whatever they can to keep it going. So maybe this year's JoeCon could be like the Indianapolis convention, where Hasbro had a small case. They didn't really have a huge presence. There wasn't a lot to talk about. And then they dropped the concept case reveals on Saturday real briefly, Yeah. And I ran in there and fell to my knees literally in front of the case because Gung Ho was unveiled. So, maybe it's another year like that where it's going to be a smaller reveal, because HasCon is a thing. And it would be Hasbro is going to want to save something for HasCon. So even though G.I. Joe wasn't featured in there, I could see them being like, well, you know what, we're just going to show our stuff, either Toy Fair and HasCon and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know.
Well, in the comics, they've crowned us as the crown jewel of the Hasbro universe.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you feel that is going to apply as far as the new direction that it takes?
Honestly, I think some of that crown jewel is more. I actually like that new book. It's so off the rails different that I find it fun.
Hey, it's got a Fatal Fluffy in it, so
Oh, I bought a Skywarp figure because he's in the comic and he's hilarious with rock and roll. But no, I think that's almost more of an IDW direction than Hasbro's direction, sadly. G.I. Joe is their oldest in-house brand. It's the thing that really helped build them as a boys company. And, but when you look at the money, Transformers is their probably most profitable in-house property right now. And as much as it pains me to say this, their second in-house property that just is a revenue generator is probably My Little Pony.
Oh yeah,
easily.
Their conventions are bigger than any other convention.
PonyCon numbers. I have my good friend goes by the Bro Show online. Mike, I give him crap for this because he started watching the My Little Pony show, and I'm like, you're a Brody, whatever. And then I looked up the numbers for PonyCon.
Yes.
And there's not just one. There's like multiple. There's like fan run ones, and there's like this official one. But for God's sakes, the one year it was like 20,000 people. Or no, sorry, 20. It was like 12,000 people.
Yeah.
And I'm going, JoeCon gets like 2. So as far as HasCon goes, I to get back to Skinny's point, I would love to go to like a to a HasCon, and they're like, man, here's the Hasbro Cinematic Universe, and G.I. Joe is right dead center. And it kind of makes sense. They're the Earth-based property. They're they're the thing that you can tie everything to.
Yep.
And of their Earth-based properties, they do have the biggest recognition. But Transformers is smoking them like a pack of cools. And, I don't know. I think that, like a lot of fans, the whole shared universe is a big unknown to us. And, I hope when they do launch this, they reboot the films, all of them, because the Michael Bay universe doesn't really leave a lot of room for G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Granted, the first movie, how many of us here, when we saw the first film, saw Lennox's team in the desert and went, oh, crap, there's Duke, there's Roadblock. That one guy could kind of be the Vietnam-era Snake Eyes with the boonie hat. And,
we did have that Easter egg in there. I don't know if you remember or not, but Colonel Sharp was in charge of that.
Yes, he was. Yeah. And that's where I was hoping they were going. I was like, oh, this could be awesome, and heck, I thought, change Lennox's, just change his name to Hauser. He would have been a perfect Duke. but I don't know. Are you guys all reading the comics now?
I am.
And not just the Hammer book. I mean, are you reading the Citizen book?
I'm reading everything that has G.I. Joe on it. I'm reading, yeah.
Revolution, Revolution, all of them.
Yep.
What do you guys think of because I mean, I think IDW's version is more without a huge directive from Hasbro as far as the film side. This is kind of their take. What do you guys think of it so far?
I was a big fan of ROM back in the day. And so including ROM in there and the Dire Wraiths and the possibilities that you have with that storyline, is just great.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it for the most part. The Joe book, the only problem I have with the Joe book, I like the story, and I know Fred, you had said something about off the rails. It's kind of neat to have like some of the character traits are there, but it is kind of off the rails. You don't know what's going to happen from page to page, which is there's something to be said for that.
Yeah,
and like you said, the connection, G.I. Joe is kind of crossing into all of the, whether it's revolutionaries or ROM, or they're the element that's connecting all the dots. So I completely understand the crown jewel as far as the IDW books. Only problem, I'm not a huge fan of the artwork, and I can't really tell you what I want, but I'll know it when I see it. I feel like there is they should spend a little bit of time on the writing teams. I think are pretty good. I think a little bit more time on trying to figure out what the artwork should be, and maybe off the rails kind of Joe stuff. Maybe that is the right artwork, and I'm fighting it because I'm also in my 40s. I don't have a problem with the Hammer book, and I like all the old Joe. I actually was a big fan of Devil's Due Joe too. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
I was a huge fan of when they started to get into like adult like semi-realistic, like when they took Zartan and they said, look, this dude, seriously, he is off his rocker because he's been experimented on, and the schizophrenic stuff, they took that and pumped it up a little bit more. And this grown man dealing with not knowing who he was anymore, like stuff like that, it was so dark that it was super interesting, because you're used to seeing like Zartan commanding the Dreadnoks, and it was all about the gold, and riding his little motorcycle, right? So it was really, I like those things, and I like the off the rails stuff, but I hope they have that realistic, some time has passed a little bit for some of these characters. I like that stuff. Like when you grow up with the character, and a lot of comics don't like to do it because you have to keep rebooting, and you have to keep doing those things. But I think it's okay if some of the characters, like Doc, for instance, he's aged a little bit more in the comic. So I hope they keep doing that, where some of the characters maybe have aged a little bit, and there's some backstory there, but some of the characters have kind of like a soft reboot, like Salvo. It seems like they've kind of just completely gender bent Salvo for the latest issue. I like it.
And that's a good, it's an interesting point too, is when IDW's relaunch first happened, because we had Marvel, which is what set the tone for everything, and then you had Devil's Due, and Devil's Due walked that fine line of kind of melding the comic world and the cartoon world and kind of coming up with this blended universe. And then IDW came along, and it was a complete G.I. Joe is formed in the post 9/11 modern world, high tech, and Chuck Dixon was on the book, and I'll tell you, that was the first book that I read every time it came in on my comic stack, and that whole, they updated things, but they did, the whole Duke and Scarlet used to date, and there was and it was different. And Cobra was this James Bondian Illuminati shadow organization that I felt like, holy crap, like we're at this point in the story, but there's so much that came before. And so with the Revolution universe, I'm kind of starting to get that feeling again, because some of the subsequent reboots of Joe, I found that I enjoyed each IDW revamp less and less. as it got away from that initial. And I'm finding with Revolution, it's just like you said, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know that if Flint shows up, he's going to act a certain way and be a certain way. And, he's going to be, hooking up with Lady J because that's what he's done since, he was introduced. And, for heaven's sakes, there's a Decepticon on the team.
Right.
And I freaking love the fact that there's a Decepticon on the team.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't read the latest issue with the Fatal Furry on it. I sadly I haven't gotten to that one yet, and I want to because I just think it looks awesome.
Oh, that's like the old Marissa Fairborn connection in there. It's Flint's daughter, but it's not Lady J's daughter.
Yeah, that floored me when I'm like, wait, what? Okay, so where is this going? Like, the only property that I'll admit I haven't kept up with on Revolution, just because I'm just behind on reading, is the Micronauts, because they seem to be the heart. That would be the most challenging to fit in. And I read some of the early issues, and I just got behind, but I still remember Micronauts, from the Marvel era, and they were, it was a whole nother dimension. And when they came here, that they literally were microsized. And I don't know. I think Hasbro's got to. You know what's interesting? We were talking about all these properties. There's one thing that none of us have mentioned that was initially supposed to be part of the Hasbro Cinematic Universe and this shared universe. Visionaries. Like Visionaries, they talked about that, and because that's an Hasbro in-house property, man, that just kind of died. Now I don't know if it's because that is, if I thought Micronauts were hard to incorporate, Visionaries is even more difficult because Visionaries is so magic based, and everything else has got a strong element of tech to it, and so you could use that as a tie, and Mask is that blending of Earth tech and Cybertronian tech, and Rom is an alien, from another world who's on it. Which thank God they brought Rom back. But Visionaries, I just don't know how the heck you're going to incorporate them.
Yeah.
Thank God My Little Pony's not part of it, because that would just be weird.
Another question I had asked, and we've talked about this before, was the parachute drop. I can say I do know the day and time it's going to happen, but I'm not going to reveal it because it's part of my volunteer schedule. But I did ask about, who's going to be allowed to do it this year, where last year it was limited to just golden ticket. And I believe it was the first 50 people to sign up got to do it. So he said it would be in the letter that we got. So it kind of makes you wonder, we get a lot of our information in the letter that everyone kind of goes bonkers over. They get that famous letter like, oh my God, I can't believe they're limiting this. I can't believe they're allowing them to get this. And, everyone, the letter is usually, that's a whole show in its own right there when that letter comes out. Man, all the people just lost their crap. They're like, oh my God, just like when I talked about the cosplay. I mean, people I know on the Facebook page that I started for JoeCon unofficial, people were kind of getting in each other's throat about the cosplay. One guy's upset because his kid might want to dress up as Snake Eyes and can't. And then someone else came back and said something about it, and then the other guy's kind of like, well, apparently you must not be a G.I. Joe collector. And I'm like, well, no, I know that guy. He is a G.I. Joe collector. Just everyone has their different input. I mean, people, when a hot topic comes up, people lose their crap, man. It's amazing.
I do know someone that I texted, and basically he said he's not going to dress up this year. So
because of the new rule.
Because of the new rule.
You know what? I want to see some of the cosplayers dress up as G.I. Joe fans. just sort of flip it on their ear. It's like, fine, we can't do that. We're gonna go and we're gonna be dressed. We'll have our backpack with a bunch of like card backs sticking out of it, and your autograph book, and just kind of really play around with. Okay, we can't dress as a character. then who's left? Well,
Right.
the fans.
Well, you know, Kevin, I didn't dress as Brian Savage last year, so.
Yeah.
Rick's going to go as a billboard for me.
Yeah, I get paid by the hour, right?
Yeah. See, I told him I was I'll tell him get some shirts made for the show, and I want to get different colors, and I'm still debating on what I'm going to put on the back of. On the back of it's going to be a different saying, like one's going to say "Making GI Joe Great Again," another one's going to say "Tanks for the Memories." One's going to say "Seeing New Orleans." The other one's going to say "We're just as frustrated as you are." Dude,
that's hilarious.
People aren't going to forget who I am by the time that weekend that show's over with me. I mean, I'm going to have a good time. I mean, that's what I'm supposed to do, isn't it? I mean, I'm giving them enough money. I should be able to do what I want to a degree. So,
man, you are going to get tossed out of there with that. No one is more frustrated than you.
You know what's funny? You should mention that. That was in an email with Brian. Was that was one of the reasons why he didn't want to come on, was because it was he didn't want to come on and not be able to answer none of our questions because of deadlines or anything of that issue. And his wording was that he didn't want people to be frustrated at him. And I also wanted to say, yeah, we don't want to be as frustrated as you are.
Oh, Brian, it's all about you.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I had to laugh, though, when you were talking about the letter, because the way you're describing it, I'm just picturing, like, the Pulp Fiction briefcase. There's Mike, he's cutting along, and he opens up, the light shines on his eyes, and it's like, oh, oh. It's like the secret reveal. The secrets of the universe are revealed inside this mysterious letter.
Yeah. I wish he would tell me just everything. I just blab away, but that's not how it goes. We always got to wait till, but something will get leaked and something will end up on eBay or something, and someone will see it. It's just, it's always something. I do know that. So
I do hope that cosplayers show up, because this is my first one, and I need some good like Joe cosplay there for my first one. And I'll tell you, knowing that I guess next year will be the last one. I'm assuming at this point for a Fun Pub. And I'm gonna try, depending on where it is. I have a son who's currently 4.5, but next year he'll be 5, and I really want to take him if it's the last one, because who knows if there'll be another one. He's really into G.I. Joe and Transformers currently. He loves the toys and stuff, and the characters and the cartoons. We watch the old 80s stuff. So I'd like to take him to the last one. And the kids have a blast, because last year there were several kids running around in costume that were just, playing like we did out on the, in the yard, good guys, bad guys against each other. Oh, he would love to dress up. If I told him he could go run around with Snake Eyes or something like that, he would lose his mind.
Yeah, a lot of people were thinking that if it is the last one, he'll probably, a lot of people would think it'd be down in Dallas, being close to his headquarters, and maybe they'll have like a big warehouse sale and try to unload everything. One would hope though. So, when we talked about it, what did you think of the name of the this year's set being called Force of Battle 2000?
It's about as inspired as some of the other names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember, like, none of them have really had a name to them. Like Sky Patrol was just Sky Patrol. The Tiger Force was just Tiger Force. I mean, this is one of the ones that had a name to it.
Well, Tiger Force was technically Operation Peril in Paradise, I think is what they called it. But because the box art was nothing more than the Tiger Force logo, everybody just called it Tiger Force. And I think what I didn't realize last year's set had a name until I think crap, I don't even know what. I think it was when Justin Bell got his review up and he posted it out of the comic, and I'm like, oh, so it did have a name. I think you got to go back to like Operation Bear Trap or Nocturnal Fire. Those are Nocturnal Fire is probably the coolest name they've done.
Right.
For the Night Force set. That I have to admit that was pretty awesome. That was the year we got the glow in the dark T-shirt. I mean, the club just hit on all cylinders that year.
Yeah, and doesn't the jet glow in the dark as well? Nightbound?
The box
did. The box did. Okay, that's what it was.
And I think the Night Force logo on the jet glows. I've got it sitting on a shelf. It's in the basement, but that room doesn't get a lot of light, so I don't remember if that glows. But yeah, the artwork I was talking to Lanny about it, and the way they did it was all black box, and all the line art on there glows in the dark. And sure enough, when I first had it down there, I had a light shining on it. I turned the lights off in the room, and I'm like, oh, there you are. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, this will be interesting this year to see the attendance, the dealer's room, all of it, because I mean, look, as much as crap as we give the club, none of us really want to see the club fail. We don't want to see a JoeCon being just like 7 guys there, fighting over a listening fun tripwire. But at the same time, it's like, man, I don't know. This year, it just seems like there was so much excitement about JoeCon last year, going to be another one, yay. And then, man, did all that just evaporate. And, the reveals of the convention set, the build of the convention set, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. By the way, the prices are going way the heck up again. It just, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like we're a month out or so, and I'm not feeling the vibe anymore.
I think you'll see a core group there.
Yeah.
For a lot of us, like a family reunion almost.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because you're going to find the people the people who go nonstop, like religion, are going to continue. We're actually we're 39 days out from the show.
If you think about it too, like it's out of sight, out of mind. I mean, that's kind of how it is. Like Mike is a good example. Like this, we do the Transformer shows together, Galactica and the Cybercast, and through Mike, we talk about halls and stuff like that. We've been doing that show, Mike, for it hasn't been quite a year, but it's been
almost
a while.
A year, yeah.
But the first few shows, we talked a little bit before the shows about what we were picking up, and Mike would talk about the Joe stuff. And as soon as I saw that Pythona, it ignited what I remembered and what I loved about Joe. And so if everybody in that core group took 1 or 2 people and showed them, this is what's out there, this is what it is, it can be. Hopefully, when the brand comes back, and the brand, it will come back. I mean, it's just a matter of time at this point. But if everybody talks to a few people and shares with them, like the comic, and these shows help too. I think the YouTube shows and the podcasts and stuff it keeps what you were saying, that vibe, that thing, that torch lit. I think it needs that. I watch Transformers build up like gangbusters. I've been into that for a long time, and I've done 13 of the BotCons that FunPub did, and I watched even before the movie, a group of small people keep telling other people about it as online started to kind of happen.
Yeah.
And it grew. By the time we got to the movie, it was already starting to grow. I know a lot of people say the movie is everything. The base stuff is everything. We got everything because of it, and it's hard to argue with it. But a lot of it is just word of mouth, because when out of sight, out of mind, you hear it all the time. But it's true. We have a lot to process in the modern age through social media and all the other things. If you look at ads and everything that we see, Joe's kind of lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. There's a lot of competition for attention. I work in advertising, and I work specifically, I do a lot of digital advertising, and you're absolutely right. There is so much competition for people's eyeballs and for their attention these days. And it is, if you notice too, it seems like brands have shorter shelf lives, even, and I use the example, I remember back when, a movie would come out, and in the early days of home video, it was months before it was, or sometimes even almost a year before it came out on home video that you could purchase it. And now a movie comes out at Christmas and it's out on DVD in March, and it's out for digital download. Rogue One was an example of that. The turnaround, the time that a brand has the spotlight is so short. There was a discussion about Wonder Woman. So the movie is coming out in 6 weeks, and you're only just now starting to really see the beginnings of their media campaign. And someone, does DC have no confidence in it, blah blah. And I'm like, no, I think it's because Guardians was coming out first. Right. And they know they've got a finite amount of time to capture attention before the next big thing is here, and that's sucking all the oxygen out of the room. So it just seems like, again, it just shows how the fandom and everything has changed. JoeCon used to be, man, we were 6 months out, and speculating, and it just seems like now, especially as it is a smaller fandom, that there's just less and less time. But
for all y'all know, we are a bi-weekly show. Next week, me and Rick will be on Galactic Gumbo and Cybercast on the G1 Hextron channel. But the week after that, which is May the 20th and 21st, is actually my con that I put on here in Arkansas called Little Rock Comic Con. So that would be the week that we would be on, but we're actually going to skip that episode. So our next episode will not be until June the 3rd, which will be our regularly scheduled episode. With that happening on June the 3rd, 2 weeks after that is June the 17th, which is actually the weekend of JoeCon. And we will actually do a live show from JoeCon. I'll come on as usual, and we'll get Fred on, and woo! And we might have a couple people behind me. I don't know. We'll show off the exclusives. We'll just talk about what's going on, what I'm seeing so far going on, and I'll post as many pictures as I can on everything as far as like the podcast show on Facebook and stuff like that. So we'll do the live show then, and then of course I'll also do the little toy review that I'm planning on doing the Wednesday night before once I get my box set. So I'm looking to get a couple of guests. I've talked to a couple of the actual guests for JoeCon who are down for doing the show. So hopefully I can work out a deal where we can get them on the 3rd before JoeCon. Get a little hype behind that for them, to be there. So we'll see how that works out. If not, they'll just be me and Fred as usual. So
you poor bastards, you're stuck with the two of us.
Yeah, just the two of us. So, but I appreciate everyone coming in tonight. We're going to call it there for the night. About an hour and a half as usual. Fred, tell people where they can find you at.
Once again, Joe Battlelines, website, Twitter, Facebook, you pretty much Google Plus, Instagram.
Rick?
And you can find me on Twitter as Shattered Glass Jazz.
And thank you to our special guest tonight, Skinny. I appreciate you coming on the show tonight, talk about cosplay with us.
No problem.
Tell people where they can find you at Twitter or Facebook or whatever.
At Skinny Joe Fan on Twitter, Instagram, and DeviantArt. And on the forums, I'm just Skinny. So.
All right, guys. As usual, you can find me here and find me on Twitter as well as BotconFan1978. Also, why I'm thinking of it, I kept telling myself I had to remember it. If you are, we're all collectors, we all have a showroom of some sort. Send us some pictures of your collection to BotconFan no, that's not it either. Autobot City Toys, Toyz 1978 at gmail.com, so we can show your collection off on our next episode. We've only had one person do it, and that was it. That was a long time ago. So we need another collection, or we're going to start doing our own collections. And that's about it on that. So, but thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it. Again, catch me and Rick next week for Cybercast Galactic Gumbo on the G1 Hextron channel. And then we will see you again here June the 3rd at our regular time, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So thanks for watching, guys. And for y'all who watch us later, thanks for watching.